sure you've heard the words, "I was too nervous, that's why I didn't perform well." But here's the thing, we live in a meritocracy. Nobody cares about how you're feeling. When push comes to shove, you are expected to perform. So here's what it really comes down to. Can you or can you not perform when under pressure? Up until I was like 15, I couldn't get a hold on my nerves to save my life. Didn't matter if I was doing a school exam or I was in a football game. The pressure would always get to me, and it would affect my performance as well. It pissed me off because it felt like I was wasting potential. There had to be a way around this, a way to perform under pressure just as well as you would without it. Fulfilling others' expectations was a struggle for me. I would get nervous because I didn't want to disappoint my parents with a bad grade, or when my dad watched the football game, I wanted to impress him. So here's what I did to get around this. I increased my own expectations to the point where failure in my eyes is success in the eyes of others. Now inevitably, this leads down a path where I will end up disappointing myself. And there are two ways of dealing with this. We can either crumble under the weight of our own expectations, or we can accept the facts. Okay, yeah, I wasn't good enough today, but tomorrow is a new day. And if you're anything like me, you'll choose the latter every time. I am a believer that you can gradually increase your tolerance to high expectations and stress, because through experience you'll be able to compare what you're going through in the moment with something that you've already done in the past that was much harder. Obviously, this is only useful if you actually have some kind of life experience. If the most stressful situation you've been in was a school exam, well then no wonder you'll crumble with expectations. But when you're constantly, voluntarily placing yourself under stressful situations, you get used to it. Right now it's Saturday, and today I did the longest run I've ever made. I did like 16 kilometers. I'll put it up on the screen. And the reason I do that, it's not because, I want to be a professional runner or a professional athlete. I think we can both agree that we have relatively easy lives compared to the lives of a 16 or 18-year-old from 100 years ago. So the reason I do this kind of activities, it's not like, I hate myself and I want to torture myself. No, that's not it. I'm simply applying pressure on myself so that when I'm confronted with other activities that make me feel pressured, it's nothing compared to this. This morning when I woke up, I was feeling awful. I was feeling nervous because I didn't know how it was going to go. And you ask okay, but why did you do this? Why did I go for a run, on a Saturday afternoon? It wasn't to impress anyone. It wasn't to fulfill the expectations of anyone. The only thing that was at stake here was my ego. And I really do think that's why I was so nervous. It's because it's in these moments that you really find out who you are. Especially when you're running. I hate running, by the way. And so when you're running, you're 3 kilometers in, you're 6, you're 9, you're 12, you're 15. And it gets to a point where you're like, why am I doing this? No one's watching. No one's going to give me praise once I finish this. The only reason why I'm doing this is to fuel my ego. And, I try to explain this to people, but I have an exam next week. You think the pressure of that exam is even a fraction of what I felt today? No. When I compare that exam to being afraid of finding out who I really am in hard situations, it's nothing. Especially because we have relatively frictionless lives, that I'm always trying to ramp up the friction in my life, and that in turn causes me to get used to pressure, get used to high stress environments. And because this stress is self-imposed, when others try to apply stress in my life, I'm just I'm used to it. If I had spent this Saturday on my couch watching Netflix, when exam day comes, I would probably be more nervous. I just like to have these moments to challenge myself, to really find out who I am. Whatever it is that you're doing, if you don't believe that you're capable of doing it, that will simply compound the stress you already have. You need to have full faith on yourself, even if you look a bit delusional from the outside. That's why 5 minutes before any exam, I'm calling it out loud. I'm going to have a 10 out of 10 grade. I'm programming my subconscious. And sure, I get called arrogant from time to time, but it doesn't matter. From my perspective, it doesn't make sense to sell myself short, especially before even seeing what the exam will be. And there will always be the people who are like, yeah bro, I'm not gonna pass, see you guys in 2 weeks when it's time to redo the exam. Sure, some are joking, but some aren't. Why would you on purpose place your mindset at a disadvantage? And this doesn't just apply to university exams either. It's life in general. People will sell themselves short before even trying out new things. I genuinely believe if you want to perform your best, you need to have full faith on yourself. If you look at the most successful people of the world, every single one of them believed in themselves. Really, the only consequence I've noticed is that, yeah, you may get called arrogant once in a while. Another thing to keep in mind is that the more importance we give to something, the more power it has to intimidate us. It doesn't matter if it's an exam, a moment. I used to only have one objective in life: have good grades. That's it. That's why the pressure was so immense, because if I failed at this one thing, my whole life would feel like a failure. Imagine a one-leg table. If you break the one and only leg, the whole table falls apart. And because my entire ego was based on having good grades, if that one leg fails, everything crumbles. So, what's better than a one-legged table? A multi-legged one. As soon as I started to diverse my attention into other goals in life, started to go into the gym, started a new hobby, started to read a ton of books, all of a sudden the pressure wasn't just focused on one point. Now, if that one leg does fail, the whole universe doesn't crumble. I got 3 other legs holding me. And here's the ironic part. My grades got better after I stopped giving them as much importance. I was able to perform better. And it makes sense as well. Imagine 2 guys both about to make the exact same exam. The first guy has good grades, but that's about everything he's got going for him. He's skinny, he doesn't have friends, his whole identity revolves around his grades. Then you got another guy who also has good grades, but he also has a social life. He goes to the gym multiple times a week, has a good physique. He's got a hobby that he works on the weekends. Who do you think is feeling more nervous before the exam? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? The first guy is a one-legged table. The second one is a multi-legged one. I have been both of them, and I can tell you for sure that the second guy is happier, and his life is much more balanced.